Cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Self-Made Soul. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on where you are in the globe. It's Michael and Mark. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit about Aristotle. Michael, how you doing today? You seem like you're in a bit of a rough mood. I have a feeling it had something to do with Trump.
It did. Well, it wasn't. His actions are bad enough, but then to see people defend it is even worse. You know what I mean? It just.
It never ends, my friend. The stupidity never ends, which is good. It keeps us employed. I got to tell you, it keeps us occupied. Even though when Michael's like, "Are you watching the news?" I'm like, "No, I'm completely isolated until January 15th." Well, what happens on January 15th? My wife goes back to Paris, so until that time, I've just sort of been in a bubble, uh, which is good. It's sort of nice to have a break from the crazy world out there, but I'm also terribly uninformed as to current events. But we'll catch up after the 15th. So, Michael, you gave me this article on Aristotle. Talk about it a little bit because
Well, first I wanted to make us twinsies, so I put on a black cap.
people are going to start talking again.
They
They're
haven't
going to start
stopped.
they're going to start they're going to well, I haven't heard the ship stuff going on in a while, but they're going to start
You
shipping
haven't been watching the news. It's all over the
Pellegrino
news. It's on CBS. Everything. It's all over the place.
Well, that's better than Trump capturing Maduro.
This is too uncomfortable. I can't take it right now.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Okay.
With the headphones. It's the headphones. See, you can
Yeah.
just blare out your whole speaker to the world. I can't do that. I have, other people they don't want to hear that, and
I prefer the headphones, but for some reason, now maybe you can help me with this because I'm more of a boomer even than you with technology. When I put my headphones on, the microphone doesn't work.
oh my God. I'm gonna bet that if you look underneath your microphone,
Uh-huh.
there's a slot to plug in headphones to the
I've done that
microphone.
too. Okay, I've done that too. I've plugged them into my microphone. It stopped working there. Then I plugged it into my computer. It worked for a while. Then it stopped working. I don't know
You
what's
need a
going
new
on.
computer. Did you go get a new computer like you were
Not
supposed
yet.
to?
Not yet. No, no, no. I'm completely isolated until the 15th. I'm not doing anything except training jujitsu
So you
and
do leave the
hanging out
house.
with my wife just to train jujitsu and to go see
Okay,
a movie
well,
with my wife.
okay. On the way to jujitsu, pick up a computer. The world knows you can afford it.
That's not going to happen. No, that's
Oh
not going
my
to happen. Not on
Lord.
my
All
way to
right.
jujitsu.
Well, anyways, I thought the article was good. I mean, a lot of when you read stuff about, ancient Greek philosophy, especially technical stuff like Aristotle, there's a lot of debate over what he actually means. And what makes it worse is that we're reading somebody else's English interpretation of a Greek text. But, so with that caveat in mind, Aristotle divided things into substance and form, right? That the substance basically would be the matter of which something consists, and the form is whatever it takes. Like you take the form of Mark Pellegrino, I take Mike Liebowitz. This is the form of the cup, that sort of thing. And so I think that that's interesting. And I also thought that his division of the psyche into the nutritive, the perceptive, and the mind, and how he explains how any entity that has a mind also has perception in the nutritive functions, but it's not the flip side. There are entities that have the nutritive functions, such as plants, that don't have perception, don't have mind. So encompassed with the mind is perception and nutritive, and encompassed within the perception, you also get the nutritive. I thought that was all very, very, very interesting and very good.
That's nice. I like Rand's formulation. On the levels of consciousness, it's so much easier to grasp than the stuff I was reading this morning. What value do you think this has? Understanding the consciousness and the mind in
Well,
respects to this for us on the everyday level.
at a very at a primitive level, it has value because you see how the thoughts about what a human being is and what thinking is, has changed over time. He provided the rudiments. And if you read, for instance, in Virtue of Selfishness, Rand talks about a similar formulation on how the conscious entities. They also have the lower faculties. It's very similar. So it also can feed your understanding of Ayn Rand by reading Aristotle. We have Jim in
That
the audience also, by the way. It'd be great to have him
Mr.
join.
Valiant?
Yeah, oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Valiant, come
Yeah.
on, Jim, come on
Jim
out here, man.
Valiant. Jim talked me off the ledge this morning. I was very pissed off.
Oh, good. Tell me why.
I already
Because of
told
what
you
we've
what.
been talking. Oh, so it's a Maduro. It's Maduro, the
It
whole
was,
Maduro.
well, it's what happens when I see people that I think should know better start
Yeah,
to defend it.
right.
Look at
Uh,
Jim. Want to bring Jim on? Jim,
bring
you want to
Jim.
come on?
Jim, come on.
All right,
Talk
bring
about
Jim on.
Aristotle with us. There he
Mr.
is.
Is that Jim or Mr. Magoo?
It's Mr. Magoo squinting his eyes.
And for the audience that's unaware, you were likely to see a teaming up against me whenever these two get together. They like have a pact of some sort. So
Our pact is with the truth, Michael. And if you have a problem with that, you might want to, check your relationship with reality.
last time I checked, the consciousness of one Mr. Valiant and Mr. Pellegrino is not reality.
My consciousness corresponds to reality.
Ah, the correspondence theory of truth. Excellent.
Aristotle, you see,
Yes.
Aristotle, who understood the relationship between implicitly, not as explicitly as Miss Rand did, but he did understand the relationship between consciousness and existence in much the same way that Ayn Rand did. And that informs his view. Ayn Rand made the point explicitly about consciousness possessing a specific identity. And she, on the other hand, she also said we're born tabula rasa. So those two ideas need to be taken into account simultaneously. We have an innate consciousness,
I'm
kind
going
of
to kill him. I'm
consciousness.
going to kill you in about 10 seconds now.
Kill me?
What?
Murder
Yeah.
me?
Actual
What?
murder. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What happened just now?
I
Because
just
he
said,
just skipped ahead to the ending where we have to discuss something. He took
so
the
how am I
exact
supposed to
words out of my
psychically know
mouth
how you plan to end the show,
because
Michael?
we're gonna go. We're gonna start with. We're gonna skip
You're
over the new.
constantly blaming me for reading your mind.
Yeah,
And that means that our consciousnesses actually work in a similar way there, Mr.
they
Leibowitz.
do. They do.
If I'm anticipating your future point, I'm sorry. But
Yeah,
obviously I was not given your outline before the program today.
and
It's all
we
right.
are
Nor was
also
I.
both.
Nor was I.
What do you mean you weren't?
I
You were
was not
given the
given the
article.
outline in. I was not given the outline in your head and the way in which you
I'm
decided
gonna
to
follow
order
the article
topics.
like we always do. What are you talking about?
Okay, we don't always follow the article,
Yes, we do.
or at least the order of
We do. But anyways, let's
I
just
was appreciating what Jim was saying until you
I was
so
too, but we got to give
unceremoniously
Jim,
interrupted him.
but we have to provide context. So what we're going to do is I'm going to skip over the nutritive stuff because it's just I don't think it really has much relevance to what we're talking about.
Good. It doesn't.
Okay, but in the perceptive sense, and they have this fancy word, Jim, in the article, hylomorphic. And what hylomorphic had to do with was Aristotle's division of everything into substance and form. And so what the article says Aristotle argued, and it seems correct from what I remember, I haven't read Aristotle in quite some time, is that whenever you perceive an object, in some ways you become part of or part of the form of what you're perceiving. Can you explain that to us a little bit, Jim?
Yes, see, that's what this is where objectivism and Aristotle may depart to some degree. Aristotle, the traditional understanding of Aristotle is that form is intrinsic to the object, and that what we're doing is by a process of abstracting, pulling out that form. And so obviously, it's related to Ayn Rand's theory of measurement omission, which is a much more precise way of looking at this. What we're doing is finding commensurable characteristics in reality. We're not finding some innate or intrinsic form to the thing. But that's what Aristotle thought we were. Pure matter, as far as Aristotle is concerned, is like nothingness. And that's where his metaphysics, I think, falls off the deep end into the primacy of consciousness. But Aristotle absolutely did believe in this form-matter distinction. Each thing possesses sort of two innate characteristics. It's matter, which makes it unique, and its form, which makes it recognizable as belonging to a class. And Aristotle believed that what we did, and he didn't explain it very well, this abstraction thingy, but he had an idea that what we're doing is abstracting the form, and that's what our consciousness can retain is forms. on the conceptual level. And this includes the form of our own consciousness, from the validity of the senses all the way through the use of logic. Now, as I say, he hadn't worked out a theory of concepts properly, and that was one of his major weaknesses. If we could conceptually identify our own consciousness, right, then we are miles ahead, says Aristotle. Now, I hate to have done all that given the big talk, but at the bottom of the hour, I am joining Ayn Rand Center UK to talk about Venezuela.
Okay.
So I
Oh,
have to leave in just a few minutes.
That's okay. That's okay. I just want to get you to give us a little bit more. So what it says here is that according to Aristotle, S perceives O if and only if one, S has the capacity requisite for receiving O's sensible form. O acts upon
Yes,
the capacity by informing it, and as a result, S's relevant capacity becomes isomorphic with that form. So that goes to what I was just talking about, how it becomes one. But he also says that the perceiver changes whenever the perceiver perceives something. That seems accurate
exactly.
to me. That by
That is
that seems
that
what?
exactly
that,
correct.
that there's
Every
change.
act of perception, every act of thought, and every action we take on it is impacting our consciousness, says Aristotle.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, and that seems correct to me.
It is. Generally, that is the correct approach to psychology. But of course, you got to start out properly with the relationship between consciousness and existence. And this is where Aristotle is head and shoulders above all the pre Socratics and even most of those classical philosophers who came after him. Um,
Just for the record, Jim, if you go on the Ayn Rand Center UK at 12:30 with Rich Rozzi and you defend the actions of this president in relation to this attack,
Stop, stop, stop,
we're going to have
stop, stop,
serious beef.
stop,
it's
stop,
going to be a
stop.
very mixed bag. Does that help?
Well, it helps because while it's good to get rid of Maduro, the reasons for it are completely arbitrary and based
What
on
does this have
lies.
to do with Aristotle or Ayn Rand's
Nothing,
view of
nothing. It's just
psychology or
nothing,
consciousness?
nothing at all. But actually, it does because Aristotle was not in favor of the arbitrary.
Absolutely. He didn't have the explicit concept like Ayn Rand did, which was
No,
a very powerful thing. But
but Jim brought me back
implicitly,
to reality.
yes,
Jim always
implicitly, of
brings us
course.
back to reality.
Well, Aristotle brings us back to reality. He says that the
Yes.
world that we perceive extrospectively and introspectively is the real deal. It's not some
Mm.
illusion like the pre-Socratics all seem to believe. Heraclitus, Parmenides, Democritus, Plato, you name Pythagoras. They all had some theory about what reality really consisted of, and it involved denying the evidence of the senses. Aristotle is often called the quote common sense philosopher of all time because for him the world that we perceive, the objects we're bumping into, the things that we hear and react to are reality. Horse
Mm.
is an abstraction. The only thing that
Mm.
really exists are particular horses, Secretariat, Dobbin, Man of War. That's the only reality to horse. And horseness only exists insofar as it does in those individual objects that we see, as opposed to, say, Plato's view, where the form has truer reality and that the multiplicity of different horses that we see is somehow illusory. This
He's
applies
making us look bad,
importantly to
Mark.
It's amazing, Jim.
He's
You make
sticking it
things
to
so
us.
clear. You make things so clear that they almost seem self-evident after you explain them. So
yeah,
thank you for
that's the
that.
thing with objectivism. Objectivism, once you get it, it's like, well, duh, you know.
That's what makes it so
But
hard to
until you
understand
get it, it's like,
why everybody doesn't get it, because it seems
why
so
everybody doesn't
self-evident
get
once
it.
you
Yeah,
grasp it.
because that's the problem. It's not. So, Jim,
Yeah.
Aristotle also says that now we go. I'm going to move on to mind. When it comes to mind, he says the mind is that part of the soul by which it knows and understands. But he also says that we do more than just understand. Let me find it and make sure that I understand. Okay, well, that I get it. We deliberate, we ponder alternatives, we strategize, and we chart courses of action which go beyond understanding. Uh, what are your thoughts on that before you go?
There is this very important realm of abstraction And that is what needed defending. That is why Ayn Rand's Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology is such a seminal contribution. The flaw in the Aristotelian worldview was precisely there at the level of concept formation and the relationship between concepts, abstractions, and the concrete things that we perceive that Aristotle and Ayn Rand agree have metaphysical primacy. And so it is exactly at that level that Aristotle fell apart and opened up Western modern philosophy to Cartesian doubt. It really is a direct product of that. Humean doubt, a direct product of that. The representational theory of perception. See, even Aristotle said, look, if consciousness in its cognitive capacity. Now, he understood there were all kinds of other functions of consciousness, as you point out. He did have differences, perceptions, theoretical knowledge, two different things. And on the other hand, to integrate it all, he desperately needed a theory of concepts. And this is where he opens himself up to form matter problems and things like that. And truly, the causal theory of knowledge. He said that if abstraction consisted of an actual specific process where there was any contributing factor of consciousness, it would ipso facto be invalid. That flaw in Aristotle opened up Cartesian and Humean and doubt and Lockean secondary primary crap and all of that. Had Aristotle said no, consciousness, conceptual consciousness can have an identity without impacting the correspondence theory of truth, as Ayn Rand explains in Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, we could have cut off at the pass all of this modern philosophy that led us down a very wrong path.
Wow. Jim,
And
I
it
have
has
two
a
questions.
very, very powerful impact on psychology, on our understanding of consciousness. Aristotle and Ayn Rand both believed that we weren't born with knowledge. We had to know, we have to look, and to know conceptually, we have to think. And both believed that. And so let me put it this way. There's the great lacuna in Aristotle's thought that if conceptual abstraction has a specific nature, contributes anything to the form or the process, it is ipso facto detaching us from reality. That would imply a whole bunch about consciousness, wouldn't it? In other words, even when we're introspecting, all of this applies.
So
Does that make
basically,
sense?
Aristotle is saying that you have to take on a mirror theory of consciousness or
Right.
naive realism in order
What
for
David
it to
Kelly
be
calls the
effective.
diaphanous theory of consciousness,
Yes.
that it can't have an identity. And what Ayn Rand, one of her great improvements on Aristotle, consciousness, if it exists, must, like everything else that exists, possess a specific identity. We can only know by a certain means and in a certain form. And to say anything else is to say, in her brilliant line, we're blind because we have eyes, deaf because we have ears, deluded because we have a mind. No, it has to operate by a causal mechanism, a specific causal mechanism, and provide its information in a specific form. But abstraction is great because it allows us to transcend the perceptual. We can cut through and identify invisible relationships between things. So, for example, I'm angry and pissed off at a politician one day, and then I'm angry and pissed off because someone ripped me off at the store the next day. I can connect the two and say, anger has something in common. When I evaluate that I'm the victim of an injustice, I feel anger. So it asks me to say, anger is a real thing, corresponds to something objective about my consciousness. Yeah, right. And Aristotle opened up, let me put it this way, Aristotle opened up this brilliant view of psychology that he has. And I would urge everyone to look both at his epistemology and his ethics, his view of friendship and its role. I would ask people to consider his view of art and its role. He is implicitly working on a kind of Rand conceptual faculty model without naming it explicitly. But this includes psychology as well.
Jim, I got two questions. The first one I want you to answer quickly, and then the second
Yes.
one elaborate a little, and I'll have you out of here by 12:30.
Okay.
So Socrates believed that if people knew what the right thing to do was, they would do it. He thought
They
that
would do it.
that unethical action is a matter of ignorance.
Right.
Aristotle believes that fundamentally people desire to know. Uh, I don't know that I buy that. I mean,
I
obviously,
don't buy it.
Yeah, when you're a
Mm.
child, little kids do show curiosity and want to learn, but
Oh,
conceptual knowledge is a different story altogether. And it seems obvious to me that many people have no interest at all in knowing.
that's all right. Our desire doesn't have to be lined up with our survival needs or even our cognitive needs. And and that's the theory is called psychological egoism. Everyone, if they knew what was in their best interest, people would just do it. And a lot of egoists have had, everyone is selfish, is the position that we're
Mm.
often told. Everyone is not selfish.
Mm.
First of all, I have to identify what's in my long-term self-interest, something very few people actually do. The Greeks, bless their hearts, that were attitudinally correct. They made an assumption that if people knew what was in their best interest, they would simply do it. Who the hell wouldn't do it if they perceived it would be in their best interest? There's a certain, persuasive, intuitive element to what they're saying. On the other hand, the history of Christianity and dictatorship, I think, has thoroughly given us a whole batch of concretes that show that people don't have to act in their interest, don't even have to identify it conceptually. So, in fact, acting as suicidally like a martyr is just Christianity and Islam is filled with the glories of martyrdom,
Yes.
throwing your earthly life away for some, supernatural cause. People can act against their own interests depending how they conceptually. Morality is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Morality, which
Now, there's a
itself is
guy.
also a relation, an emanation of our view of the relationship between existence and consciousness. For Rand, it was all about reason as our basic means of knowing and surviving and the social conditions that reason requires. She engineered an entire system of ethics predicated on the central virtue of reason. Everything in her ethics is an application of reason to the problem of survival. And this would include our interpersonal life. This would include psychology. And so while Aristotle, when it comes to certain things like art and friendship, he seems to be on board with that approach, he did not have the full defense of it that Miss Rand did. Again, does that
Okay,
make sense?
it does. And there's also a
Absolutely.
guy, a guy that both of you knew personally who wrote an excellent essay called "Isn't Everyone Selfish?"
Right.
And it's in Virtue
It
of
is one of the most
Selfishness.
profound compliments you can actually give a person. If I say you're really selfish, what I'm
Yes.
saying is that you are rational, that you have thought
Yes.
through the long-term needs of your survival and happiness. Wow. A person who really does think like that and is integrating their virtues around reason, a whole ethics of reason, if you will, which is unique in the history of all philosophy to Ayn Rand. Think about that.
Yes. Yes.
An ethics that puts primacy on reason, think for yourself as its primary normative injunction, is unprecedented until Ayn Rand.
Okay, now I'm going to give you my view on something you alluded to earlier, and I really just need to know if I'm right or wrong on this, and then we can let you move on. So
Okay.
Aristotle said that the consciousness doesn't exist until is acted upon by
Mm.
some entity or by something in the external world. The author of the article says that Aristotle runs into a problem here because
Yes.
it alters his whole matter and form thing. He's basically saying that
Absolutely.
nothing's
We
affecting
are
it.
born with a specific emotional palette.
Yes.
That I will feel anger at injustice, that I will feel sadness when I experience loss, is built into my system at birth. If you mean tabula rasa in that sense, we objectivists reject that. We can
Yes.
only know by means of perception and conceptual identification. That a consciousness has a certain identity that we walk in the door with, but it's a capacity, it's not the content. I don't
It's
know what I'm
tabula
going to see until I see, but I have a capacity to see. It is by means of seeing that I can know anything. And I better have that capacity to see built into me, or I can't even get the thing off the ground. Now, until I see something, I don't know
yeah.
anything.
Now,
That's what we mean by tabula rasa.
so yes, tabula
Mm.
rasa
Mm.
refers
Mm.
to conceptual knowledge, but the way in which I think that Aristotle is correct here is similar to when Ayn Rand says, until a person is conscious of something, they're not conscious of anything. They're
At
not
all.
conscious. And the
Right.
thing is this, it's not as if you have a human being who comes into existence conscious and then gets exposed to things. These things are simultaneous. The sense organs start to develop in utero.
Right.
So there's never a situation where the
Well, think of a
person,
camera. Think of a camera. A camera has a built-in capacity to take images and give me the product, photographs, right? But does that change the status of reality that it's no, the reality it took the picture of is the reality it took the picture of, and it's independent of anyone taking the photograph. On the other hand, does a camera have an identity? Yeah, a very specific one. Now, does a camera give us pictures yet? No, not until it actually clicks the picture.
Jim, I love you. Thank you so
I
much for
love you.
coming
Thank
on.
you,
Talk to you
Jim.
guys later.
Thank
All
you.
Okay.
right, Jim. Go get him. All right.
Wow,
Now you people are just stuck
that
with
was
us
great.
two dum-dums. So
That was great. That was
it was.
great.
We were really fortunate to have him. A
I
very
am
tough topic.
stunned. Oh,
All
I am
right.
stunned into silence.
Oh, no, 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 no. We
No,
can't
no,
have you
no.
be silent, Senor Pellegrino, because I
I
need you
must be.
to. No, you have to
I'm
start
going to.
sharing
I'm
now.
going to cogitate.
Oh my God. I
That was
find that
great. That was great,
cogitation.
Michael.
I find that cogitation does tend to have a salubrious impact on my overall existence, but particularly in regard to my consciousness. It's definitely not deleterious. I will put that
Yeah,
out
I
there.
was waiting for the next one. I was
Yes,
waiting for
I
the
will
next
put
one.
that out to you
That
for
was great
sure.
because I was wondering what value we could, what practical value we could get out of this article, and I feel like James sort of summed it up for us,
Yes.
really
Now,
nicely.
so the next part has to do with, let me find this article if I can. Okay, I did. Desire. Desire is something very interesting to me. Aristotle held that there is a faculty of desire whose occupation it is to initiate motion, because he notices that some entities move, others don't. But desire to me is always posed a conundrum, right?
How so?
Well, let's take the guy who wants to become a good person, right? Let's say you're a bad person, but you want to become a good person.
Okay.
In order to say, okay, this person initiated that, had that desire. Okay, well, where did the desire come from? Well, if he initiated, well, why did he initiate it? He would have to have a desire to initiate the desire, and you just end up going in an endless,
Infinite regress.
infinite regress backward. And then you end up having to come to the conclusion that, well, is desire just something that somebody's not in control of? And then how do you judge the moral status of somebody who just never had that desire if the desire is innate? Now, I tend to think that while not solving the ultimate riddle, I think that we come into this world and, as we start to grow, we have conflicting desires often. We want to touch the stove. We don't want to get burnt. We want to eat the chocolate cake. We don't want to get fat. So we have these conflicting desires. And I think it's up to us to choose which desires are operative. And there's a philosopher named Harry Frankfurter who talked about first order desires and second order desires. And your first order desires is what you immediately want to do. Your second order desires refer to your desires about your desires. Now,
Hmm.
we could go back in an infinite regress, but I do think that this is a uniquely human phenomenon that we can look at our desires or values and say, I don't like these values. They're not affecting me in the right way. They're not getting me anywhere, and then alter them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you and I probably both went through that when we both discovered that we needed to change who we were because the types of people that we were not leading to success or happiness. And
Right.
with that standard in mind, we started to rethink our values and rethink the way we looked at the world and rethink the way we acted in the world. And that has resulted in whatever it is you see today, folks. It comes from a lot of thinking and introspection, and then applying the conceptual knowledge that we gained to the real world, and then watching the effects of that. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think that's
Now, when
very,
you
very good
jump
point.
to, from psychology to, Aristotelian ethics, where the goal is, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Eudaimonia?
yeah, something along those lines. Flourishing, basically, is human flourishing is the goal. I think that's also an excellent precursor to Ayn Rand's ethic of rational self-interest, because I think that happiness, while happiness can't be taken as a primary, as Rand says, because then we have no objective standard. Just I want to be happy, and whatever happens to make me happy, I'm going to pursue. There was a time when I thought heroin made me happy. It made me feel real good in the short term, but it ruins your life in the long term. But I do think, as Rand said, happiness can be the purpose of ethics, though not the standard. And I think that's what we
Mm.
all should be shooting at. And I hope that the people that tune into this show, that is their goal. And I hope that we can all help each other to reach it.
Yeah, and that requires that long-term thinking, Michael, because shooting for that long-term happiness can mean temporary uncomfortability, right? You may not be happy in the moment. You may be going through a lot of some pain, as a matter of fact, changing your values to the long term. How do you get people to overcome that initial, the shock of
You
change?
don't. You
Yeah,
can't. You
you just have
can't
to
get them
accept it.
to. They have to want to. They have to do it. Now, if you look up, like, there's something like motivational interviewing where you can actually ask questions like, how would your life be better if you did this? To get them to think in terms of what their actions are causing, what's actually in their interest. These are things that we can do. Hi, Elizabeth Coburn. You've come on the screen. Hello. The hat is pulled down low, but it's okay. But so there are things you can do to help facilitate it, but ultimately, if a person doesn't want to do it themselves, there's nothing that you could ever do.
Yeah, that's true. I just wonder how it is we can assist from the outside somebody who's having difficulty overcoming that and the initial pain, the cognitive dissonance and the discomfort with change. Other than to say, yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable changing. You just have to
Well,
accept
you
that.
could you can point it out in terms of, think about something that I don't do, but eat vegetables. Eating vegetables is very helpful. It makes your body better, makes you feel better. It's disgusting going in, to me, anyways.
Mm,
Or you could think about an analogy of working out, right? If you go to the gym and you're just starting out, and I remember one time, let me just give an example. I was doing curls in the basement of my house. The next day, I woke up and my arms were like this. I couldn't straighten them out. It hurt so bad. But you have to go through that. There's no
yeah,
way not to. And it's the same thing with psychological, emotional, and ethical growth, is you have to be willing to go through the pain in order to get to the good parts. But the flip side is, if you don't go through that pain, then you just continue to suffer anyways.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Do you have anything else to say about this, Michael? I mean, I feel like with James, between you and James, I mean, you guys just slaughtered this topic. Maybe we should take questions now from the gallery.
I'm all for it. If they got the questions, let's go.
Any questions, comments, or concerns, folks, from the gallery? We've got so many
Concerns?
folks from Germany.
Any airing of grievances? It'd be so much better if you understood Seinfeld references, Mark.
Yes, it would. I apologize for that. Somebody up here wanted to know our feelings about the Maduro thing, by the way, even though it's,
Who?
I don't know, somebody up in the chat said they were, I think it was Mandy, said she was curious about um, our take on the Maduro incident.
Uh, I'm going to leave this up to you. I mean, I will address it if you want, Mark, but
Look,
I don't know if we want to do that on this show.
yeah, I don't mind hitting it for a second. I mean, I've just seen headlines this morning, so I haven't read about it in depth, and I don't think you need to have a principled take on what's going on. I think I could speak for Michael in saying we can understand how it's not a bad thing to take out a dictator, but at the same time, the reasoning for doing it is totally off and frightening for me. As a participant in this political system, we don't want an executive empowered with renaming trade, even if it's considered illicit trade, as terrorism and using that as an excuse to project military might onto
Well,
other people.
well, that might be a way to address it. So think about it in terms of um, what we've been talking about today. A little bit with Jim about the arbitrary and about concept formation. So this war is largely based on lies, right? The idea that fentanyl is coming here from Venezuela, it's not. So that's lie number one. Arbitrary changing of words to mean different things, narco terrorism, that sort of thing. So something that starts off based on lies and the arbitrary cannot be a good thing, even if the bad people are getting killed. Now, yes, you might say, well, Maduro deserves it. Okay, Maduro very well might, but when you bomb drug boats, which is part of this, right? It's not that this just woke up today. They zapped a laser, snatched up Maduro, and we got him. It started with bombing drug boats. Then they bombed Venezuela. I don't know, but I have a pretty good idea that people who aren't involved in any of this have been killed. Now, someone might say, yes, but he's a dictator. Yeah, and had he attacked us, then attacking back, if you happen to kill civilians, is justifiable. But in my view, killing civilians in a country that has not attacked us, that's not cool. We also, it's not a constitutional action, and that goes back to the arbitrary nature of it. It's at the whim of the president. And we don't ultimately know what the effect is going to be, what's going to go in place of this, how the citizens of that country are going to react, how other countries are going to act. And we're always should be looking at this from our own self-interest. And I just don't see how spending American money, maybe end up spending American blood, because I can pretty much guarantee there's going to be troops there. I might be wrong. I shouldn't say guarantee, but there's a good chance there's a good chance you're going to have American troops on the ground there, and they
Yeah.
will end up hurt or otherwise. So is it worth our money and our blood to do something that violates the Constitution, is built on lies, and is arbitrary? And I would argue that there's no way it could be.
Absolutely. Now we do have two questions. Whoever came first, I see Anna's hand up, but also Nicole Hingle has a question. So whoever came first, Lou, just pop them in there for us. Thank you.
Hiya.
Hi.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi, what's up?
Just hanging.
Yeah, I can see that. Mark, you showed me your tattoo of Frankie on your boob that one time. Yeah, I wanted to show you mine.
No, there you go. Now that won't save you from Lucifer. I just want you to know.
Oh, shit.
Sorry.
Kidding.
I thought we
the-
were going to have a disaster.
Yeah,
on our
I
hands
know.
just
I
now.
know.
The everyday
She said,
average
Mark,
demon.
Mark, she said, you showed me your tattoo on your boob. Now let me show you mine. I'm like, oh, no.
It's at the top of my chesticle.
It's
Yes.
also on top of my chesticle. So, I have a question about the article and something about this to say about the war. The thing about the war, fuck that guy. Trump. I don't mean the Venezuelan.
Don't mean the Maduro. Yeah,
No.
the Trump.
Trump,
For
fuck
sure.
that guy. Here's the thing. And about the article, didn't Aristotle also wrote a few of the Greek mythology stuff, and about like Alexander the Great and some of the Trojan War, I think, or
I
was it
do not
somebody
believe
else?
so. I don't believe so.
Wait, what did
Aristotle,
he?
Aristotle
He-
tutored Alexander the Great, but
Yeah, he tutored
Aristotle
Al-
didn't write
Yeah.
mythology.
No,
Aristophanes may have. I think you might be thinking
Oh,
of
okay.
Aristophanes,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
Aristotle.
I think that was.
Aristophanes wrote some mythology.
I believe so.
believe.
Okay.
I don't
or
know.
some plays, some comedy, something
Sure.
along those lines.
Let me
Yeah.
check. Yeah. So no. Other than that, yeah. How are you doing, Mark?
But the Trojan War, I think, predated Aristotle.
Oh,
That
by
was-
a
Oh,
long
yeah.
shot. By
That was
hundreds of
that was
years.
Bronze Age. That was Bronze Age time. So it had moved on. Yeah, I hope we answered.
Aristophanes was a comic who wrote in classic Athens. He was an Athenian citizen during the Peloponnesian War, known for biting satire, obscenity, fantasy, and direct political commentary. So it might be Aristophanes that you're thinking of. I don't know.
Yeah, he was from Athens. No, he went to Athens to go to the academy.
So he was at Plato's Academy.
Aristotle
Yeah.
was a student of Plato. Yes, for
Yeah.
about 20 years he was a student of Plato at the academy. He also tutored Alexander the Great. but he was not he didn't write mythology as far as I know.
Wow, yeah.
I don't know that he wrote
No.
any fiction. He did write poetics where he explained
The rules.
well, rhetoric and things of that nature.
Mm.
Okay. Then I was wrong. Okay. Sorry about that.
By the way, poetics is Aaron Sorkin's guide whenever he writes scripts. He
Really?
uses the poetics. Yeah. Great writer. Well, thank you very much, Anna. You just so you know, watch out for possession by Satan, because that will not keep Satan out.
Haha.
What's up, Nicole?
Got it. Nicole is muted.
Muted.
All right. Now you
Unmuted.
can hear me. I have the flu, so I read the article with a fuzzy brain. I apologize. Do you think Aristotle would view mental illness as a failure in the soul, or would it be connected to, would it be an impairment because our body's not in proper condition?
I have no idea, Nicole. I'm sorry. I don't know what he would think. It's very difficult to project a context backwards. That, I mean, there's so many findings that have taken place since then that lead to the idea of mental illness that he's not aware of. So to say, well, if he were born now and he had all the information, what would he think? And I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't answer that question either. I just don't think there's enough in Aristotle's
Well,
knowledge.
you're an actor, Mark. Make something up.
I was going to, but I decided
Just don't
not
show your boobs.
to. Too late. I already showed my chesticle. Yeah. That we don't have.
Sorry,
enough
we couldn't
information.
answer that question. Do you have another one, Nicole? Oh, Nicole disappeared.
Although I suspect he would probably go in the right direction, since he understood the relationship between the body and the mind better than anybody at that time, or even in today's
Probably.
time.
Yeah, probably. I'm very
He related those things to black bile. Is that true?
You're talking about, oh God, I believe it was Hippocrates that had the
Okay.
four
The humors.
Yeah, phlegmatic, choleric, sanguine, and melancholy. I think were the four humors. And if they're out of balance, you end up with problems. But I don't think that was Aristotle.
Why, that informed medicine for centuries.
Might have been Galen, even. I'm not sure, or it might have been Galen that overcame it. I'm fuzzy on that. Jane Stewart is smiling. Look at that nice smile on Jane Stewart up top. Can you see it?
I do. Yes. Any other questions, comments, or concerns, guys? Oh, did we? Yeah, we did. Never mind.
What did we do?
Nothing. I'm not going to say.
What?
Nothing. Well, I mean, I think unless you want to say anything more, Michael, I think.
Well, I would like to give him a little more time. Maybe I'll just break your balls for 15 minutes and then we can move on with our lives.
I'm so used to that. I think they are too. They're becoming accustomed to our relationship. I think he does mention in passing, Persephone says.
It's possible, but I don't recall it. I'll actually look it up. What the hell, Mark? Entertain the people, and I'll look it up.
Yeah, not going to happen.
I'm looking up Aristotle and the Four Humors. Sounds like a rock band.
It does, actually. That would be a great name. Nicole's already abandoning ship, by the way, but she's sick. A lot of people are sick with whatever this flu is that's going around. We have a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Michael was looking away. Jim was talking about that selfishness is pretty much the biggest compliment, and I think I heard Mark also saying something about that earlier. But
Yes.
how are you calling someone who just doesn't care about the feelings of others? Because that's mostly what we call selfishness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mark.
it's usually when you're not fulfilling something that they want. In other words, their selfishness is precluding yours, and so they call you selfish because they would prefer their needs to be met over yours. And I use the term selfish as synonymous with reasoned self-interest, and I use narcissism to describe people who don't give a fuck about others and just think that pursuing what they want at the expense of other people is actually a decent thing to do, or they don't even consider it as moral or immoral. They just consider it as neutral because, or for in their favor. So I call people narcissists or malignant narcissists. Not a formal diagnosis, of course, probably doesn't fit the formal diagnosis, but it describes a personality that is insulated and neurotic and neurotically self-protective, right? At the expense of the truth, at expense of other people. To be selfish in the sense that we mean it means to be taking in as much information as possible and making choices based on your long-term interests. I mean, we could look at a guy like Trump, who's a narcissist, clearly a narcissist, and see that he doesn't make any decisions based on long-term analysis and long-term benefits to himself or anybody else. He's
But is
interested
he
in,
selfish?
he's not selfish. In fact, he's sacrificing his long-term self-interest every time he appeals to his base for a short-term gain. Every time he sacrifices a principle for a pragmatic choice, he's actually undoing his long-term self-interest. So he can't be considered selfish in my by my definition. What do you say, Michael?
Okay.
But narcissistic people are just a disorder. Well, everyone is an unpleasant person sometimes.
True.
Okay. I'm going to give the great answer. So everybody be prepared for the wonderful answer. Okay.
Okay.
What we're talking about, first of all, when we're talking about selfishness, is somebody who acts in their own interest, who does what's best for themselves. It does not entail violating the rights of others. In fact, in objectivism, we have specific prohibitions about violating the rights of others. I shouldn't use the word prohibitions, but what's the word? Guidelines or advisements. It's immoral to initiate force against other people. It's also right to find an affinity of values with human beings, to form relationships. That's all in our own interest. The problem is the word selfishness itself is defined as someone concerned with their own interest without regard for others. For this reason, I'm not really a fan of the word because it just leads to too much arguing about what it means and what you're talking about. The problem is there's no real concept or no word that designates somebody who's acting in their own interest rationally without violating the rights of others. So Ayn Rand used the term selfishness. Now, it should be noted that without regard for others, there's an ambiguity in that. Does it mean that I'm going to do whatever I want and not consider how my actions impact others? Or does it mean I'm going to act for my own interest without benefiting somebody else's own interest where that's not my concern? There's an ambiguity there. I prefer not to use it because it just leads to questions and then you end up having to argue about the meaning, the dictionary definition. I'd rather just explain what we're talking about, and that's rational self-interest, or, well, you're not going to be able to see it probably on my arm. Oh, you might. Let me slide back. Egoism. Ethical egoism is what we're talking about. The act of pursuing your own rational self-interest. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question, Mandy. Any other hands up?
Hands up, don't shoot. I did see, to get back to Persephone's question. So it said that the four humors the idea of the four humors was originated by Hippocrates and developed by Galen. It's commonly misunderstood, and Aristotle is brought into the equation because Aristotle had four elements: earth, water, air, fire. I specifically asked if Aristotle ever used the term of the humors. And this is what it says. Yes, but not as the four humors in the later medical sense. Aristotle mentions individual bodily fluids, including blood, phlegm, bile, and what later writers would call black bile, but he never presents them as a unified four humor theory, nor does he treat them as the primary basis of disease or temperament. So he does use the word, but not in the same way as it was later on. A lot of people do have fragile egos, our commander in chief among them.
Yeah, a person who should have the least fragile ego of all is at the helm of the country at the moment. That's scary.
Oh, I've got one more thing for Persephone. For Aristotle, illness is mainly due to an improper mixture of qualities, hot, cold, wet, dry, failure of teleological function, an organ not fulfilling its purpose, excesses or deficiencies. The bodily fluids are byproducts or effects, but they're not first principles. So there we go. We learned something new. At least I did.
Very good. Very good. Well, folks, if there are no more questions, I think between Michael and James, any questions you probably would have had have been answered. So I guess we will see you next week at 9 a.m. Self-Made Soul. Thank you for coming today, and we hope that you got some value out of this.
Mandy wants to keep hearing you talk, Mark.
We hope you got some value out of it. I wish the voiceover, my voiceover.
Oh my God! Stop with the voiceover.
I wish they felt the same way, because I listened to the Capitalist Corner voiceover. I'm like, that is a good voice. Why am I not working more and doing more commercials for voiceover?
Oh, I could go for that.
Yeah.
I think that somehow, given our partnership, that I should be tied into your earnings, whether they be for the shows we do or the acting jobs that you take. I keep your spirits up. I keep you thinking. I'm making you a better actor. I think that a percentage is warranted.
Okay, I'll think about that. All right, guys, thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I know there's tons of things you can do, and you've chosen us, and I hope you got some value out of this today, food for thought, and you think about it during the week, and make sure to bring your questions next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Love you. Peace.